Season 1. Season 1 of Yellowstone introduces John Dutton, owner and operator of the Yellowstone Ranch, facing a potential terminal cancer diagnosis and grappling with his own mortality. John contemplates his family legacy and plans to leave the ranch to his eldest son Lee, the Dutton child most loyal to their father. While running the ranch, John is constantly at odds with Broken Rock Reservation Chief Thomas Rainwater, who wants to reclaim Yellowstone for his Native American community. Then there's land developer Dan Jenkins, who wants to buy up and develop the ranch's land. Kayce Dutton, John's youngest son, is estranged from his family and living with his Native American wife Monica and their son Tate on the Broken Rock Reservation. But when the feud between the Duttons and Broken Rock escalates, resulting in the murder of Lee Dutton at the hands of Monica's brother Robert, Kayce kills him to enact revenge. John is forced to cover up Robert's murder to protect Kayce. Though their father-son relationship remains tense, and having just murdered his own brother-in-law, Kayce's marriage with Monica grows strained as she fears his violent actions will impact their son. With Lee dead and rivals closing in on Yellowstone, John is forced to turn to his other children for support. John's daughter Beth arrives from Salt Lake City to handle Yellowstone's business affairs and takes charge in trying to keep Dan Jenkins away from the ranch. She's also got a bit of a drinking and drug problem and falls back into an on-again, off-again romance with Rip Wheeler, a ranch hand at Yellowstone whom John took in when he was a teenager. Amy Dutton is a lawyer who tries to position himself as the moral center of the family, but he's not trusted by his father. Jamie feels further pushed away upon the return of Beth, who he has long had a contentious relationship with. When the governor of Montana, Lenell Perry, offers Jamie a chance of becoming Attorney General, John Dutton gives his son an ultimatum: politics or family. Jamie ultimately chooses politics and is removed from the Yellowstone family business. In turn, Jamie decides to speak with a journalist looking into stories of murder and manipulation at the hands of the Dutton family on the Yellowstone Ranch. Elsewhere, Rip Wheeler is the ranch foreman who leads the branded ranch hands at Yellowstone, all willing to get their hands dirty to advance John Dutton's control. One of John's old friends asks if the ranch can take in his grandson, Jimmy, a criminal in need of a job. Rip and the other ranch hands, including Lloyd and Colby, take in Jimmy and show him the ropes, ultimately giving him a family and a purpose. As the season comes to a close, Thomas Rainwater and Dan Jenkins align in their mutual distaste for John Dutton and make plans to build a casino on Yellowstone's borders. Kayce realizes that Monica and Tate would be better off without him, so he returns to the Yellowstone Ranch alone to try to protect it as a legacy to pass down to his son. Kayce joins Rip and the ranch hands in the unrelenting support for John, capturing Dan Jenkins and hanging him for his scheming antagonism. Season 2. Season 2 of Yellowstone finds John Dutton discovering that he doesn't have cancer but instead a ruptured ulcer. Realizing his death is not imminent, John sets his sights on holding on to his land and advancing the Dutton family legacy. John draws his estranged son Kayce closer in and entrusts him with the title of ranch foreman, drawing the contempt of the loyal Rip Wheeler. John fully reconciles with his son and shares his intentions of leaving Yellowstone to him. Kayce then reconciles with Monica, and she agrees to move to the ranch with their son Tate. Elsewhere, Jamie Dutton's campaign for Attorney General has lost all financial support due to the influential Jay's public opposition. Although Thomas Rainwater offers to back him, Jamie decides to withdraw from the race to appease his family, regretting his decision to sell out his family's secrets to a journalist. Jamie kills the journalist and returns to the ranch a broken man, hat in hand. Meanwhile, the rivals John Dutton, Chief Thomas Rainwater, and the still-alive Dan Jenkins are forced into an uneasy alliance to thwart the attempts of the Beck brothers, a couple of villainous real estate moguls with aspirations to take over the entire area. The Beck brothers align with a group of white supremacists to try to wrestle Yellowstone from the Duttons by any means necessary. They send men to assault and kill Beth, but luckily Rip intervenes and saves her. They then send armed men to kill Dan Jenkins, who isn't lucky enough to have Rip save him. The Becks also orchestrate the kidnapping of Tate Dutton, sending the Duttons into full war mode. The vengeful Duttons and their ranch hands kill an army of white supremacists, and in the end, the father and son of John and Kayce work together to kill the Beck brothers. As the season comes to a close, John decides to write Rip into his will, emotionally recognizing him as an official member of the Dutton family. Meanwhile, Kayce is reunited with his kidnapped son Tate, bringing him home safely back to Yellowstone. Season 3. Season 3 of Yellowstone finds the Dutton family trying to move on from their past dramas and continue their simple life on the ranch. John Dutton steps down as livestock commissioner to appease Governor Perry following the violence against the Beck brothers. Now, he's free to enjoy a semi-retired life on the ranch while teaching his grandson Tate the ropes. In John's stead, Jamie becomes the new livestock commissioner, though his father still doesn't fully trust him. When Jamie gets offered the interim attorney general job, Kayce Dutton becomes the new livestock commissioner in his place, and that's on top of Kayce's responsibilities as the foreman of the Yellowstone Dutton Ranch. Kayce's wife Monica, meanwhile, begins reconnecting with her Native American roots and even strikes up the beginnings of a partnership with Chief Thomas Rainwater. Jamie Dutton's strained relationship with his sister Beth is revealed to be because of his handling of a teenage Beth's abortion when they were younger. Beth sought Jamie's assistance in seeking an abortion, and Jamie decided to have her treated at a clinic, which required their patients to undergo homilies, meaning Beth is no longer able to have children. Upon this revelation in the present, John Dutton is furious at his son, further fracturing Jamie's relationship with his family. Upon discovering that he was adopted, Jamie goes to meet his biological father Garrett Randall, who had murdered Jamie's mother when he was a baby. Beth Dutton's work in finances with the bank Schwartz and Meyer and her familial ties to the Dutton Ranch puts her directly in opposition to Market Equities, a firm which wants to buy up Yellowstone Ranch and the surrounding properties to build an airport and ski resort. A representative from Market Equities is tasked with securing the deal by any means necessary, and the Duttons are offered $500 million for their property or face a legal battle that would force them out. But it's not all a struggle for Beth, as she's back on again with her longtime love Rip Wheeler, and the two get engaged. Rip, meanwhile, continues to lead the ranch hands and hires on Teeter to add a woman to the boys' club. Teeter fits right in and forms a relationship with Colby, while Jimmy strikes up a relationship with a barrel racer named Mia, who encourages him to follow his dreams of being a rodeo star. After suffering serious injuries in a rodeo event, John Dutton agrees to pay for Jimmy's medical bills in exchange for him promising to give up on rodeo and focus on being a ranch hand. But with Mia's encouragement, Jimmy gets back on the horse. The last we see of Jimmy, he's bucked off that horse and lays unconscious, his fate unknown. Rip and the rest of the ranch hands eventually have to deal with Wade Merrill, a neighboring rancher and old rival of John Dutton. Wade and his son Clint continue to escalate their rivalry with the Duttons, eventually leading them to trample Colby and Teeter to near death. Secretly, Wade and Clint are working on the orders of a rower, who is hoping to bait the Duttons into taking illegal retaliations against the Merrows, which would help Market Equities' case in buying the Dutton Ranch. The bait eventually works, as Rip and the boys round up the Merrows, killing both father and son. As Season 3 comes to a close, the battle between the Duttons and Market Equities comes to a head. Market Equities CEO Willa Hayes has Beth fired from her job at Schwartz and Meyer and is able to convince Jamie and Governor Perry that the airport and ski resort would be in the best interest of the people of Montana. But that doesn't mean victory for the firm, as John Dutton is determined to fight for his land and even allies himself with rival Thomas Rainwater to stop the development with a lawsuit. For Rainwater, if an airport and resort were built on the land, he'd never be able to reclaim it for his people. So an alliance between himself and John is in both of their best interests. Not content to take the battle into a long, drawn-out court case, Willa gives the rower the go-ahead to do whatever it takes to close the development deal once and for all. As the season comes to a close, the members of the Dutton family are the targets of several assassination attempts, with Kayce being attacked by armed gunmen in his office, Beth having a bomb explode in her old office building, and John being gunned down on the side of the road while helping a stranger change her tire. Season 4. In Season 4 of Yellowstone, all of the Duttons survive the attacks on their lives, though some suffer worse injuries than others. Unaware of who was behind the attack, Rip takes revenge on the Duttons' current antagonist, Roarke, by killing him with a poisonous snake. As John recovers from his wounds at the hospital, Beth meets a teenage boy named Carter, who becomes an orphan after his father dies of an overdose. Beth takes Carter home to the Dutton Ranch, where she and Rip take him in. Carter reminds Rip of his own childhood and being taken in and raised by John. Beth is likewise employed by Market Value's new president, Caroline Warner, where, from within, Beth plans to keep the firm from getting her family's territory. Additionally, recuperating from his wounds is Jimmy, regardless of harsh admonitions from John and the best clinical specialists, keeps seeking after perilous rodeo hustling. John sends Jimmy to prepare at the 4-6's farm in Texas to improve as a cowpoke. While there, Jimmy meets and becomes hopelessly enamored with a lady named Emily. At the point when Jimmy gets back to Yellowstone with Emily as his new life partner, John gives his approval for Jimmy to remain in Texas for all time with his new lady and even takes care of Jimmy's broad doctor's visit expenses. Somewhere else, John and Kayce start savagely taking out the different contract killers associated with the Dutton death endeavor, wanting to find the genuine genius behind the arrangement. Thomas Water assists John with distinguishing the one who evidently coordinated the hit cruise as a detained criminal named Riggins. John requests that Kayce ask Jamie for his assistance as principal legal officer to uncover Riggins' true jail documents with expectations of acquiring data. This was likewise a trial of Jamie's dependability. On the off chance that he was reluctant to help Kayce, he would likewise be engaged with the homicide plot. Jamie consents to assist Kayce with investigating Riggins, and what he tracks down shocks him. Riggins' previous fellow prisoner was, as a matter of fact, Garrett Randall, Jamie's natural dad, who carried out a 30-year jail punishment for killing Jamie's mom. Jamie has been growing close to Garrett, but revelations of his violent past and connections to the Dutton family murder plot have Jamie second-guessing their relationship. Just as Jamie is ready to confront Garrett for his villainous schemes, his ex-girlfriend Christina arrives with a child she claims Jamie fathered. Jamie cautiously reconciles with Garrett and his newfound family, helping support him in his plans to run for governor of Montana. The current governor of Montana, Lenell Perry, informs John that she plans to run for the U.S. Senate and that she would, in turn, be endorsing Jamie to be elected as her replacement. John, who has an on and off-again romantic relationship with Perry, warns her of Jamie's disloyalty and incompetence and confesses his own desires to run for governor. So, Governor Perry publicly endorses John, which infuriates Jamie. John also develops a relationship with an animal rights protester named Summer. Beth orchestrates for Summer's activist group to protest a Market Equity-owned site, then arranges for the police to arrive for a violent assault. This creates a PR nightmare for Market Equities, resulting in Caroline firing Beth and promising to steal her family's land and have her arrested. The violent protest also leads to Summer being arrested and sentenced to 14 years in prison for assaulting the arresting officer. John convinces the judge to lighten Summer's sentence but remains furious at Beth for her actions, threatening to kick her off the ranch. When Beth gives a sincere apology, John forgives her. Meanwhile, Kayce, Monica, and Tate move into a ranch of their own, and Kayce grows closer to Thomas Rainwater and his right-hand man Mo. Although Monica discovers that she is pregnant, her and Kayce's relationship is strained when a former Yellowstone ranch hand named Avery re-enters their lives and professes her love for Kayce. When a wolf appears on Kayce's new property, he is encouraged by Mo to go through a Native American ritual. After 4 days of living in the wilderness with no food or water, Kayce has a vision that he thinks promises the end of his relationship with Monica. As the season comes to a close, Beth has a quick and last-minute wedding with Rip before enacting her own plan to ensure the safety of her family and their ranch. After discovering Riggins' connection to Garrett and Jamie, Beth confronts her brother and threatens to publicly disgrace or murder him if he didn't do as she said. So, Jamie kills his biological father, Garrett, and disposes of his body, all the while Beth takes photos of the crime. Beth then returns home to the ranch where she informs John that they no longer had to worry about Jamie's loyalty, as Beth now owned him. Season 5. John Dutton is sworn in as the new governor of Montana, and his first act is hiring Beth as his chief of staff to help him officially shut down Market Equity's plan for land development. Caroline Warner is furious over these actions, and the now Senator Lenell Perry warns John that Market Equities won't give up so easily and will now fight even harder for the Duttons' land. While attempting to bolster his popularity as governor to strengthen his fight against market equities, John further aligns with his former rival Thomas Rainwater and publicly condemns a pipeline being built on the land of the Broken Rock Reservation. Elsewhere, Monica goes into premature labor, and against Kayce's advice, attempts to drive herself to the hospital. Unfortunately, she gets into a car accident that results in her losing the baby, which she and Kayce had named John. As Kayce contemplates his spiritual visions that could foretell the end of his relationship with Monica, he helps his wife grieve, and they grow closer together. Meanwhile, Rip and Beth continue to raise their adopted son, Carter, and teach him about life on the ranch. When wolves begin killing cows on the Yellowstone Dutton ranch, Rip and the ranch hands take action to kill them. Unfortunately, the wolves were officially tagged as belonging to the public Yellowstone Park, and so Rip and the boys are forced to cover up their illegal wolf killings. John then tasks Summer with helping him fight the court case against the wolf pack killings. Beth still harbors bitterness toward her father's new, younger lover, but Rip encourages the women to work out their differences, leading both Beth and Summer to earn each other's respect. The farm's dairy cattle become contaminated, and John is compelled to send them off to Texas to guarantee their endurance. This undertaking will be exorbitant and tedious, and Tear drives the group close by a larger number of people of his kindred farm hands, including Waver, who imparts a profound and heartfelt farewell to Kayce, who stays behind at the Dutton farm. With his obligations as lead representative removing him from the farm for expanded periods and around 50% of the farm hands gone, John authoritatively leaves the Yellowstone Dutton farm under Kayce's influence. In the meantime, Beth finds that Jamie has a child, which he has hidden from his family, and commitments to have his guardianship repudiated. Jamie starts an issue with Sarah Atwood, a delegate of Market Values, who persuades the angry Jamie to involve his situation as principal legal officer to find an escape clause that would permit Market Values to proceed with their Yellowstone land improvement. At the point when John and Beth utilize their political situations to have the Yellowstone Dutton farm safeguarded as a public park under state locale, Market Values persuades Jamie to require John's prosecution in return for their help and support him as Montana's new lead representative openly. At the point when Beth compromises Jamie with visual proof of him killing his own natural dad, Jamie stays resistant and takes steps to uncover the whole Dutton family's background of homicide and unloading bodies in a space known as the train station. Acknowledging she has no power in controlling her sibling, Beth hesitantly proposes to John that they kill Jamie, realizing his life is at serious risk. Jamie makes arrangements of his own to enlist experts to have his family killed, and professional killers recruited by Sarah Atwood shoot John Dutton dead, then, at that point, stage it to look self-caused. John's children are devastated by their father's death, and despite how the shooting was staged, Beth is sure that her brother Jamie is behind this tragic act. As Rip and the ranch hands lead the cattle to the 4-6's ranch in Texas, where they reunite with Jimmy, Rip learns of John's murder, and he races back to Yellowstone to comfort his love as Beth swears vengeance on Jamie. Jamie is distraught over John's death and regrets his involvement in having his father killed. He finds his only comfort in Sarah, who encourages him to take advantage of this opportunity and finally claim the Dutton family empire for himself. Jamie convinces Montana's new governor, Stephen Rawlings, to move forward with taking the Yellowstone land using eminent domain and allowing market equities to develop it, much to Senator Lionel Perry's chagrin. Meanwhile, Kayce, Monica, and Tate attempt to build their family a fresh start on the Dutton land, but John's death threatens to ruin their new chance at a happy ending. Kayce joins Beth's quest for revenge against Jamie and calls in the aid of his old Navy SEAL friend, Cade McPherson. As Kayce is pulled further into this plot, Monica begins to worry it will tear their family apart for good. Kayce convinces the medical examiner to take a second look at John's body, leading to the case being officially reopened by the police, led by Detective Dillard. Sarah grows concerned that she will be connected to the murder, but is then shockingly killed by assassins, ensuring her permanent silence. Cade then helps Kayce track down his father's killer, the assassin Grant Horton. Instead of killing the assassin, Kayce chooses to spare his life but threatens him never to come near his family again. Detective Dillard begins looking into both John and Sarah's deaths, and while searching Market Equities and Sarah's property, he realizes that Jamie profited highly from Market Equities' Yellowstone lease, thus giving him a motive to kill John to ensure the deal went through. As Detective Dillard closes in on linking Jamie to John's death, Jamie seeks comfort in Christina, the mother of his child. She encourages Jamie to publicly condemn Sarah and declare that he always loved his father and will fight to bring his killer to justice. Chief Thomas Rainwater and his right-hand man, Mo, continue their fight to stop the building of a pipeline under their land. Unfortunately, political rival Angela Blue Thunder assures her supporters that the pipeline will prove beneficial to their people, causing a division among the Broken Rock Reservation. Mo leads a group to destroy the materials needed to build the pipeline, saving the Broken Rock Reservation from its inevitable corruption. Back on the Dutton Ranch, things only get worse. Beth and Rip's adopted son, Carter, gets cornered in a barn by a horse. When Colby saves him, he is tragically trampled to death. Everyone is devastated, Teeter most of all, further dampening the spirits on the Dutton Ranch. With a legal battle against market equities brewing and a property tax bill that will bankrupt them, Beth and Kayce reluctantly realize that the only way to save their family's land is to begin selling it off piece by piece. Rip tasks his old friend Travis to start selling the ranch's equipment and horses, earning them enough money to keep the ranch afloat for another year. But Kayce realizes that the only hope for permanent salvation, ending their battle with market equities and avoiding the exorbitant property taxes, is to sell the entire Yellowstone Dutton Ranch for nothing. So, Kayce and Beth strike a deal with Thomas Rainwater, selling him the entire Yellowstone Dutton land. Both the Dutton family and Broken Rock Reservation ancestors had history on this land, and under Thomas's control, he would ensure that that history is forever honored. In the agreement, Kayce is allowed to keep his property on the land to live with Monica and Tate. With the Yellowstone land finally and permanently saved from villainous hands, the various family and friends of John Dutton gather to hold an emotional funeral service. Beth then pays a visit to Jamie, declaring that now that Broken Rock owns the land, he would never be able to steal it for himself. This leads to a brutal fight between the siblings that ends with Beth finally killing her scheming brother once and for all. Rip helps his wife cover up the death by dumping Jamie at the train station, adding one final body to Yellowstone's history of violence. In the end, the Broken Rock Reservation takes over the Yellowstone land, though the Dutton farmhouse is torn down. Thomas and Mo uphold their promise to ensure the family's legacy lives on. The various ranch hands scatter to plot their own paths, including Teeter, who takes a job working for Travis in Texas. Kayce is finally free of the burden of the Dutton family legacy to live happily ever after with his wife and son. And then there's Beth and Rip, who buy their own property away from Yellowstone to live with Carter, happily in love and ready for their next adventure. Share your thoughts in the comments. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next breakdown.